welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Indicio Deputy CTO Sam Curren, and he's here to discuss the value already contained in your organization's existing ecosystem and how to maximize it. Thank you for joining me today, Sam. Would you mind starting us off with a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a deputy CTO at Indicio, and I do a lot of architecture work with clients, both with community and open source work, but also helping our clients to understand how to deploy their and manage their ecosystem. So I spend a lot of time in those areas, which is fortunately really relevant to our topic today.
Awesome. Well, yeah, always appreciate you taking the time to sit down and speak with us. You actually just wrote a recent article where you argued that the foundations of trust within your ecosystem already exist, and I was curious if you could expand on that for us.
Yeah, the world of verifiable credentials is full of people exploring the possibilities of using verifiable credentials to save money, to gain efficiencies, to do all sorts of great things. And some of the questions end up coming up as like, well, what do you need there first? Like, what do you start? What are the foundations of the trust that you need in these ecosystems to exist? And so there's lots of open questions about that. And what I argue is that you probably already have the foundations or the relationships that you're going to build that trust on in the ecosystems that you have today. And so you want to leverage those existing relationships that you have in order to get started and gain the benefits, but with both you, your business, your ecosystem, your partners, and other participants. Rather than seeking to create something new or to supplant what you have and create something different. You want to start with what you have.
All right. So could you break that down a little bit more for us in terms of what does that mean day to day and starting with what you have?
So I'll get to some examples in a minute, but you want to generally verifiable credentials ease the transfer of trusted data between parties. And this is valuable because if you can trust the data, then you can be a little bit more flexible on where the data actually comes from, which yields decreased cost of integration between systems, et cetera. But you need to trust the source of the information within your ecosystem. That translates to the issuer of a verifiable credential. You need to trust that that issuer of the verifiable credential is the authoritative source of that information and that you can believe the information that's in it. Just because you have a credential that says something doesn't mean you should trust it. You should only trust it if it's actually issued, or if the party that's saying that information, is authoritative, or has a worthwhile opinion on that information. And so you probably already know the organizations or the parties within your ecosystem that are trusted for that. And so as you transition into a verifiable credential based system to gain the benefits of it, you want to leverage the existing relationships that you likely already have.
All right. So you mentioned you could give a couple examples of what that actually looks like.
Yeah, that'll help. So one example is trade associations, or and so that could, for example, one of the common ones in my space is the IEEE, right? And so you can actually become a member of IEEE. They're a trade association for people that do that. There are similar trade associations for welders and cattle ranchers and all sorts of things. And by being a member of those trade organizations, you have often access to benefits by being a member of the organization, but there's also, you can meet other people that are there, or there's resources from the organization itself that you can take advantage of. Often those trade associations charge some sort of membership fee or something similar to sort of exist and sort of cultivate that ecosystem. And so if a trade association wanted to add verifiable credentials to the technologies they use to fulfill their purpose, they already have relationships with partners, with organizations that perhaps provide their members discounts, and they have organization with their members. And so they can facilitate introductions between all of these parties because they act right now as the authority for that ecosystem. And that same authority is relevant when there are parties in the ecosystem that are issuing and verifying verifiable credentials. So in that case, the existing relationships and the existing membership of a trade organization would be the foundations that they want to build on, and that they already have. They already have those foundations. Another example that may be a little bit closer to home or personal is like a medical care network. The medical system, at least here in the United States, I mean, there are differences, but you have doctors and you have facilities like hospitals, and then you have insurance companies or other systems that might help coordinate with doctors and negotiate for prices or things like that. And so these medical care networks already have an ecosystem that they're participants in. They have the doctors and the facilities and the care providers and the pharmacies and all of these other parties. And they also have the individuals that are part of their care network, whether it's employees of companies that they work with or individuals that are just independent members. And so these medical care networks can play the role of connecting and facilitating interaction inside the ecosystem. Again, they already know who their people are. They know who their providers are. They know who their facilities are. And so they can act as the authority within the ecosystem to designate who is authorized to issue and verify which verifiable credentials within that ecosystem in order to help the ecosystem work efficiently and with trusted data and better accuracy and all the benefits of VCs.
All right. And right, just play devil's advocate, right? They already have all this information clearly. They've already got their ecosystem kind of built. Why should they adopt verifiable credentials? What are those benefits that they would really gain?
Um, you're asking the right question, and with the actual benefits vary a little bit by organization and kind of how they're built and how they're organized today. One of the large costs in that, and I'll pick on the medical care networks a little bit, is that medical information is notoriously hard to transfer between organizations. So let's say I go to a new doctor because I just moved to a new place and they want to see stuff. The process of transferring medical records around is often very awkward, particularly because these medical care networks often change relationships. They'll add doctors or remove facilities, or maybe one buys another one, and so there's a whole bunch of data involved there. There's also regulation that makes that complicated, and so it's not very simple to actually get a medical record about a patient from one place to another place. And there's a lot of people working on this problem, but they're mostly working on the problem by combining all of that information into databases through integrations between systems. And that can be costly and also occasionally run afoul of privacy laws or medical information regulations. One of the advantages of verifiable credentials is that the information is provided usually to the subject of the information themselves. So my medical records can be given to me, and then I can provide them to my doctor, the new doctor that I go see. The problem there is that there's a couple problems, but one of them is that without something like verifiable credentials, the doctor doesn't know how accurate those medical records might be. And so he doesn't know whether he can trust the information that's in them, or if I've manipulated that information because I'm trying to get him to prescribe me a particular type of drug that I have, malicious purposes for obtaining, whatever, right? So there's a trust issue there. Verifiable credentials make it so that even if I'm the provider of the information and I transfer it to my doctor, he can verify the digital signatures on that against the doctor that it came from. And through an ecosystem, a trust network like a medical care network, he can verify that that is in fact a trusted doctor, and then he can gain a level of trust in the medical records that I'm providing him. And so one of the most obvious areas of efficiency that we see is that you don't actually need to integrate the databases of all these various computer systems. You can allow the users themselves to move the data about them in a way that is very friendly to privacy laws and other things like HIPAA, so that you don't have to worry about whether you've actually obtained the right kinds of permission to move that data. And when it does in fact get there, you can trust it when it arrives.
So you mentioned that there are some large government projects and organizational projects working on large scale identity type solutions. Is this the kind of solution that you're kind of advocating for? Is there something slightly different? Could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
It's a little different, and I'll explain the differences because it's very helpful to understand. The ecosystems that I'm talking about already exist, and they don't really need permission from governments or any other parties to leverage and start using verifiable credentials. They could just do it today. These other systems that I'm talking about are generally very large scale efforts. So I'll give you a couple of examples. The U.S. of course has a few, but a really obvious example is in the European Union. The EIDAS 2.0 effort is an effort to establish sort of a government organized system of identity that's very large and is designed to encompass all of the people in the entire European Union. That's a large project.
Mhm.
Another one, for example, that's not really in the area of people, but in the areas of organizational identity, um, is is the VLEI and Glyph as an organization working on doing that. And these projects provide a different kind of a value that's really important. They help with the introduction of new parties to each other. So if you encounter a new person, like a new patient walks into the medical office and you've never met that person before, then onboarding that person is assisted by these large identity systems. Similarly, if you're making if you're adding a new organization to like a trade association, then being able to carefully and accurately identify the organization is important. And in both of those onboarding steps are a source of fraud. And so having a large system like that to facilitate it can provide value as you are creating brand new ecosystems or are you're growing existing ones. Where it doesn't really help very much is when you're actually gaining information from people or organizations that you already know. If you already have an existing business relationship or you already have a way to communicate or to exchange information with these people, then it doesn't actually add very much because you'd only be re-identifying the people that you've already identified within your ecosystem. So they do provide value. Because they're so large, they're kind of a long time coming, and it takes a little while to get things figured out and rolled out in a way that everyone's happy with, um, and to provide credential technologies that are useful in the ways that industry needs. And so they'll assist in the growth of ecosystems, to be sure, but they're not needed to establish existing ecosystems. And there's a ton of value to be gained by not waiting and jumping in and getting started with what they have. As these other systems become more popular, and they are deployed and they can start to add value, they can be integrated into the credential systems that companies might already be using if they've jumped on it to gain the immediate value that they can.
All right. So sorry, there's a lot to take in there just in the last few sentences.
Sorry, large answer.
No, no, I totally get it. If I could just kind of summarize and you can let me know if this sounds correct. Um, so even if you start building now, you can still take advantage of these things like Glyph and IATIS that are coming hopefully soon, but on probably a longer timeline. You could start building right now and just take advantage of their capabilities later, correct?
Absolutely. As they add verifiable credentials, those can be verified. Those can be integrated in. There's a hot point of debate about how compatible the technologies actually need to be integrated. My personal view is that nearly any of these technologies can in fact be integrated and used alongside each other, even if they don't happen to use the same formats or don't happen to use the same protocols. They're still going to provide value there, and we're going to end up needing multiple formats and multiple protocols in order to accomplish the goals that we have. And so it's if you are waiting for a system where everyone's going to use exactly the same format, exactly the same key type, and exactly the same protocol, you'll never have an answer that satisfies that. Because the future is a multi-protocol, multi-format world, getting started means that you can add whatever other systems use as a benefit to yours as you continue and move along.
All right. So it sounds like the message I'm getting is, kind of build it now. Is there any benefits to waiting at all? Where is the technology, from your viewpoint?
There is definitely value to be gained today by leveraging verifiable credentials in your ecosystem. And that can be done now. It can be done within the organizations that you have. And we've got a number of customers doing exactly that who have realized and come to understand the value that it provides. Waiting may be an option, but you're going to lose a lot of the business benefits of using this technology now. It does mean that the world is changing, which means that there's some ongoing adaptation as advancing technology typically requires. But the benefits exceed the cost of keeping up or adding additional things as they arrive on the scene.
All right. Sounds good. It looks like that is about our conversation for today, Sam. Thank you for taking the time to join me. If you at home are interested in learning more about verifiable credential technology, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to bring you some more educational content. And if you have any questions or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please go ahead and leave a comment below. We'll be sure to read and address them. Thank you again to you, Sam. If people would like to learn a bit more about what we've been discussing today, where would you suggest they look?
There's lots of information about verifiable credentials out there, but please come talk to us. We have a lot of experience helping our customers organize their ecosystems and find places where efficiencies can be gained through deployment of this technology. We'd love to talk to you, understand what you're doing, and we'll help you out.